Welcome to our Alert Labs presentation. My name is Ian.
And I'm Jordan.
Today we'll be talking about how to improve net operating income at your buildings with smart sensor technology. A little overview of what we're going to be talking about today. Just a little quick intros, give us our last names and all that stuff as well too. And then we'll be looking at the top 5 water problems and how to solve each one. First one, water bills, water damage, insurance costs, choosing the best solution, and getting buy-in for full rollouts and building by building deployment. My name is Ian Mosher. I'm currently participating in Movember. That's why we got a little bit of this going on. And I do customer success at Alert Labs.
My name is Jordan Nettle, and I'm the Director of Business Development at Alert Labs. So Alert Labs has been in business for 6 years. We were a tech startup and built ourselves into a full stack IoT firm and build all of our technology in Kitchener, Ontario. The company was gone through a full purchase just over 18 months ago by Watsco, one of the largest HVAC distribution companies in the US. Our team is continually growing and ever evolving as we continue to service more and more markets in the commercial real estate industry. And our main goal and mission in our business is to provide full solution products for the commercial real estate industry. And these can cover everything from water solutions to HVAC products as well.
That's a little bit about us. Now a little bit about you. You're a multitasker, problem solver, relationship manager, trusted advisor, and an all-around rock star. So let's go right into problem number 1, water bills. Hey, why is this water bill so high?
So one of our questions is continually asked is how to deal with water bills and how to react to them when we find that when you get this bill and you say, what has happened here? Why is the bill so high? And this is where smart sensors can really aid in understanding what's happening in real time, give you a proactive approach instead of waiting for that bill to come in and be reacting to these major increases. Unfortunately, billing cycles can have us waiting sometimes 30 to as much as 120 days to realize that there's a problem that's been ongoing or still happening at the property.
Yeah, there's not much you can do once the bill comes in. You know, there's no fixes that can be done. Yes, you can avoid it in the future, but once that bill comes in, that's the money you owed, and that's it.
Especially when water rates are going up constantly, both the Canadian and US markets. As much as 100% increase in the Regina area. In the GTA, we're anywhere from as much as 40 to 80% increases. And right across the country, we're seeing this trend. And the only way to effectively change and control some of these costs is to manage when water is being used and how much is being used. At the end of the day, the costs are going to continually go up. So making sure we're on top of these leaks real time is going to be very important.
A good comment you had the other day, Jordan, was that water costs are going up. What does that mean for rent? That means rent's probably going to go up as well too.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, rents and leases sometimes are locked in, and we can't cover all these changes in increased cost. So the only way to do this is to manage the actual water use and try to mitigate some of the consumption.
So let's look at real-time water usage visibility. How can it help?
Yeah, so the importance of real-time visibility is it's giving you an understanding of when water is running through the property. You'll be able to break down granular consumption as much as a minute-to-minute data points, so you can really understand what is actually your leak consumption and quantify that, and even break down what your mechanical systems are using. So you're going to see your operational time of your irrigation system, your boilers, and anything else. Even if you're filling up a pool or any other systems in the building, you're going to be able to quantify what that system costs you to fill up and operate. And especially when it deviates from that normal activity, you'll be able to react to it real time to make sure those repairs happen and the system is running optimal.
Yeah, some level of visibility that you can gain from this is knowing how much it costs to cool your building. That's pretty key. Sometimes you're just blindly getting the bill and saying, hey, how much did it cost to do this? How much did it cost to fill the pool? With this type of visibility, you're able to kind of start to pick those apart and prioritize that as well too. Should we be paying this much? Is this something that we can reduce as well?
So smart sensors are supposed to be very easy to deploy. IoT technology is meant to be able to just strap on as easy as this on a water meter and provide you the insights that we were just discussing.
That looks pretty easy and a great animation as well too. Here's a little preview of a customer success story that we're going to show a video for later. The highlight of this is a property management company saved over $100,000 on water cost simply by deploying smart water technology. And we'll get a little more detail, but you can see our quote on that page there. Let's move on to number 2, water damage. Emergencies at 3 a.m., not fun. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants their cell phone ringing. Nobody wants to have to get out of bed, especially as we approach the winter months, and to go in unit.
So as we get these calls at 3 a.m. and we have to react to these problems, one of the main pieces of including a smart sensor is to be able to respond to these issues real time so we're not reactive and having major infrastructure damage. Obviously, when these events happen, they're a massive waste of money. These are non-budgeted events. It's extremely emotionally draining, not only on the staff and the maintenance team, but it's also very hard on the tenants or the owners of the units, making it very difficult for them to either live in their space or continue to operate their business if it's a commercial application. It's also very time intensive, making all these repairs, making sure there's mold remediation, all the infrastructure time and mobilizing trades is all very difficult and time consuming, especially in the climate we're in right now with COVID. It's very, very difficult to get all these parties involved, make sure everybody is safe and taking all the right practices. Having the time cut down to be able to respond to these leaks is going to be imperative to minimize the amount of damage and strain on the entire system.
Yeah, it's a really good point. You know, with the current climate that we're in, having tenants move out of their units is a big ask. And we know with water damage, especially with stacked multi-resident units, you know, the flood can go down multiple floors. Good example is at a building we visited this week, you know, went all the way down from 11 floors up. So every floor, every unit was affected. So that every tenant had to be out, you know, for how long, they don't know. But it is something that is truly, you got to be a little more mindful, and you got to do your best to, you know, decrease the amount of people coming through your buildings and decrease the displacement that you do with your residents.
So there's lots of areas in buildings that are constantly aging. So even in brand new sites, they can have infrastructure breakdowns, and that's just typically related to plumbing repairs and things like that. But as aging buildings continue to get older, the infrastructure will continue to wear and break down. A few common pieces are laundry hoses. They get brittle, they will break down over time and lose their seal and eventually either blow or start to leak and cause damage. This is one of the most common pieces that we do see failing in buildings where floods and leaks are going undetected and causing lots of damage are on the laundry units. Other common areas, as we're all aware, is your standard with under your kitchen or bathroom taps. Of course, toilets are always a prevalent area where leaks and floods can happen. But all of these pieces are inevitably going to have a leak. It's just a matter of being proactive and understanding that as aging life cycles continue to come up, that they're being repaired and maintenance, and especially if you have an aged infrastructure in your existing property, being able to minimize the risk and understanding that when there are going to be a flood, that you react to it faster is going to be very important.
So true. Something we often talk about with our customers is minimizing the severity of the events. So how can we reduce that time? Something that we'll get into a little bit later. You know, a key point on here as well too is talking about fridges with water ice makers and direct water lines. Those flex hoses crack or incorrectly installed very often, and then it could be running onto the wall behind your fridge, and you would never know about it, unless you moved your fridge and did a cleaning. And we all know that we don't do that too often unless we're moving out of our units.
A typical condo flood right now is a cost of $250,000, and all of this is not just to repair the units. In a lot of cases, this covers some of the cost of removing tenants from the space. This will cover some of the deductibles potentially covered, and the repairs, bringing in trades, and basically the complete process is usually costing around $250,000. So any way to avoid this and cut these costs down is going to be very important moving forward for property management and asset managers.
The longer the delay, the more the damage. This is something that we hinted at a couple slides ago, but we want to go in a little bit more detail on that.
Absolutely. So water damage and by the time the event is actually discovered, is completely correlated with the cost of the flood. So the faster we can create response times, it's going to mean the repairs are done that much faster, and the cost incurred is going to be drastically cut down.
Time is money. We've talked about it.
Here, yeah, is the president of Chubb North America, and they were mentioning that every time a leak occurs, when it's discovered, is the single greatest factor in determining the amount of damage. And this is where the smart sensors are imperative being deployed, so that that time frame can get cut down, even from an hour time frame of response into 15 or 20 minutes. Will be a massive amount of difference in the amount of damage and how long it's going to take to make the repairs.
Let's talk about the solution.
Yeah, so flood pucks are a main component of flood detection. They can be remotely placed anywhere in a building. They typically will not require any infrastructure upgrades. They'll be able to be customized and placed in everywhere from laundry units, dishwashers, bathrooms, even condensation fan coil drip pans to make sure that they don't overflow. They can really be strategically used in lots of different areas, even in high volume, high risk areas like mechanical rooms. Basically, anywhere that you want to have eyes on a potential flood and you want to know about it real time, that's where you can put these flood pucks.
Jordan, you mentioned a couple different locations there. When you're talking to a client, I may know the answer to this, but what's that first area that you think they should protect?
Yeah, I think it would have to be your mechanical areas and your laundry area. They're the most prevalent and most common leak areas in the building to cause floods and typically cause the most amount of damage.
So it's just the amount of water that is in those rooms, right? In those cushion tanks, in those hot water heaters, something you really got to be aware of, right?
Absolutely. Major infrastructure, when it does break down, especially when there's high volumes of water, it's going to be costly and affect the entire tenant base in the building. If they did lose a boiler or a hot water tank, everybody would be showering with cold water the next day.
And these aren't one-time issues, right? Typically there's a slow leak or a slow flood that, yes, there's a small fix that you can do, but it is a sign of a potential massive failure going down the line, correct?
Absolutely. Small pinhole leaks and slow leaks do happen on a regular basis, and they're indicative of a failing infrastructure. So paying attention to the warning signs is very important, that when these major events do occur, hopefully they can be avoided. And having systems like this to warn you is very important, because we can't have eyes everywhere right now. And again, to bring up the climate we're living in with COVID, we don't want our employees and our team members having to be walking around the building all the time, potentially exposing them to the virus right now. So having systems that can give you that peace of mind that the building is dry and that there are no current floods is extremely important.
Yeah, something we'll talk about in a couple slides is those areas, continue to talk about those areas that are behind lock and key that aren't necessarily visited every day. And like you talk about, that inch by inch, survey who has time to walk the building and kind of get in that detail. That's why we're there. That's why a smart sensor could be there, just to kind of let you know the trends, not only just, hey, it's not going to catch the flood the first time, but if it's catching multiple floods, every couple of weeks, it's going to be a good sign of what could be happening in the future.
So these flood alerts are going to be very important because it's going to give you a time frame for when a leak starts and give you the time frame for when the leak stops. And this is important with these sensors as we talk about them, is they need to be accompanied with a strong dashboard as well to give you the data that is palatable, that gives you that framework and hierarchy within your organization so that team members understand that, hey, there was a leak, it's been addressed, and it is now stopped. It is very important for the success of a building.
Yeah, it's really key to not only just get this, quantitative information to say, hey, this is when it's happened, this is how often it's happened, the duration, but also, action your team to start getting you more qualitative information to say, hey, what happened? What was the fix? Where was it? Is it, simply somebody mopping up? Is it a pinhole leak? These are key things to start to track at your buildings as you are, could be dealing with aging infrastructure, want to kind of track these things and see if they're patterns or see if they're one-offs as well too.
With the flood pucks, as mentioned, you can be very strategic with placement. Obviously, showing an elevator pit here, and building managers and owners can all relate to this. As soon as a cab touches water, there's an extreme amount of cost that's going to be in getting that cab operational again and get TSSA to release it. So by understanding that if there's ever water in those pits is very, very important. So you can shut that cab down prior to that cab hitting that water. So you can find out what's going on in the base of the pit and get it repaired prior to receiving thousands of dollars in a bill from your elevator technician to repair it.
Another key point is in these times with the limited restrictions on how many people can be in an elevator. If you have 3 banks of elevators and all of a sudden one goes down, that's going to increase time for your tenants to get up to that 15th floor, 11th floor. Everything and people start to build up in those lobbies. Avoiding these things will avoid this congestion and so many different dominoes that come with it as well too.
The other piece of technology is a water overflow sensor, and these sensors can monitor sump pumps and their health and how they actually operate. They'll monitor the depth of the water in the pits and that they're being evacuated effectively and properly. And in the time where there is power loss and that pump potentially does not have power, it's still going to remotely monitor the system for you and give you those real-time alerts as the pit is filling with water and potentially overflowing. You receive those notifications, so then you can create that appropriate actionable plan to hopefully get that issue rectified before it actually damages the site.
Another one of those locations where a large amount of water can be collected that can cause a lot of damage in a very short time. Key to keep track of this as well too.
Again, circling back to the dashboard, it's important that the data is palatable, it's easy to understand, and it's going to be itemizing everything. So here in showing you the sump pump data, you can see the pump pumping out and refilling and pumping out again. So this gives you the life cycle of the pump, seeing that it's running properly, as well as gives you those pit warning levels for consumption.
Also helps with the monitoring the health of your sub pump. What's happening, how frequently is it going off. If it's going off every hour, that's going to let you know that this lifespan of this particular unit may not be as long as at another building that only goes off once a day or once every 2 days. So that wear and tear on those units as well too can be monitored.
One other item that's very important is the automatic water shutoff valves. These can be strategically placed anywhere. You can put them in high volume mechanical rooms, on varying sizes of pipes. They can even go on individual unit shutoffs, and this gives you that remote capability to automatically shut water off from either your smartphone or the dashboard online. So you can literally be anywhere in the world and remotely turn off the water. Now, these systems can also be trained to be very smart, so individual flood pucks can be deployed in strategic areas, and they can basically be trained to say any water that's been located on X number of pucks will shut off this automatic shutoff valve. So then in the event a leak has occurred and there's flood damage taking place, they will automatically send that alert and shut the water off. So that issue will then be remedied until human interaction can then take place and make the appropriate repairs. But this is a massive piece to the puzzle when we're trying to cut down on response time, and insurance companies in a lot of cases are looking for this type of technology as well, which is what we're going to touch on in another few minutes as well.
Yeah, it's key to have that two approach system, right? It's not always automatic shut off. You can also go into the application on the dashboard for the shut off and turn it off manually after you get an alert. That way you're not shutting off, water to the whole building just because, a mop pan spilt over or something like that, right? So we always, when we're talking about full building solutions or even common area solutions, we like to talk about a little bit of both. Okay, put these as automatic, put these as that manual human intervention to make sure that you're not shutting off water to the whole building when you don't need to be.
So this is a good diagram to understand the complete solution, and having a suite of products that really allow you to customize the approach for every building. No two assets are the same, so it really gives you that opportunity to kind of customize where you want flood pucks, where you want to have automatic shutoff systems. And in this scenario, it gives you a really good diagram showing the irrigation system with the automatic shutoff valve. It gives you the pool area as well. So in this package, it basically gives you a complete solution where you have flood management, you have real-time water monitoring, as well as the automatic shutoff valves that are strategically placed throughout the property as well.
Yeah, this is good because it really shows starting at the meter itself with the smart watering sensors, getting that minute by minute data, moving out to the flood pucks to protect your building from water damage, and then moving to those auto remote shut off devices to start isolating your building that the most damage can be caused. Although if a hot water heater bank does have a leak, shutting off the water won't prevent the damage that will be done, but you'll be alerted quicker and you'll be able to stop the refilling of those units. Something I wanted to point out as well too is you with those pools or with irrigation, those are big users of water that aren't always looked at as separate entities, but they should be. It's not just about the water that's being used in the building, but it's about the water being used on irrigation and pool as well too. So being able to sub-meter or pull those pieces out is really key as well too to get greater understanding of your building. So move on to number 3, like Jordan talked about, insurance costs. I need insurance to cover my insurance. We'll get into a little more detail on that and what that means on the next slide.
So circling back to the water damage event and the time closed to the event discovered and then it being repaired, this is completely driven by our insurance costs and our current rates that are continually skyrocketing. And as mentioned previously, with the insurance firms getting heavily involved in this, this is now a double-edged sword where the benefits of having smart systems and smart sensors deployed in the buildings is imperative for the building's operations team and the tenants themselves to make sure they're mitigating as much of these risks as possible. But it's also the insurance companies now getting involved as well. And because they're understanding that these types of sensors are cutting down the, the regular claims that are being made with water events occurring. So this is closing the gap now for both sides, where the faster we get to these problems, the less damage there's going to be, which is the least amount of an occurrence of a claim being made, which means the faster repair for the site, and we get back to normal. And it's interesting to see that insurance is getting as heavily involved now, and we're going to talk about that in the next coming slides, as this is the future of managing buildings, is having to have these types of smart sensors involved, even to carry insurance.
We always like to stress, that right on the right side of the screen here is increased time, increased cost. Decreasing that time to discovery is key. And a lot of the times, if it's water behind the walls, if it's water in an area that people aren't going in, it can take days to weeks to discover. Or to go back to our first point, is you may not discover it until you have a water bill that's all of a sudden 10x or 20x your previous month to say, okay, what's going on? We got to start walking the building. That irreparable damage that could be done already, we try our best to avoid that with our smart sensors and our flood pucks as well too. So InsurTech.
Sorry, Ian, go ahead.
Sorry, man, that's our first one. So InsurTech growing in importance, right? So not only are the smart sensors growing in popularity in the market, but insurance is starting to pay attention to this as well too, because at the end of the day, if you're paying your insurance company, you have something that happens to your building, they got to pay out as well too. So they're looking at their own profit margins and their own profit lines and saying, what can we do to be not only cutting edge with technology, save ourselves some money, but also prevent massive damages to get these tenants out of their buildings.
Yeah, it's very important. These insurance costs continue to go up, and that's where insurance companies as well as the buildings now are both invested in making sure that this technology gets deployed in as many properties as possible. No buildings are getting younger; they're only aging, and that's part of the approach that both sides are quickly realizing.
Yeah, that's a big thing too, is, finding a partner with their smart sensors that not only can go into newer construction buildings, like, partners like the Hartford do, but also in the retrofit space as well too. So looking at, okay, what can we do to this building that's 30, 40 years old, without cutting pipe? You can get, the water sensor, the flood pucks out as well too, but also look at, who can also handle those new construction pieces as well.
Absolutely. So insurance costs, obviously, as mentioned, they're continually going up, and we're seeing deductibles range from $150,000 to as much as $500,000 on a single flood claim now. So paying this out of pocket we cannot continue this type of activity moving forward. So we're having to come up with some better ways to manage these types of events, and that's where these smart sensors are coming into place. Insurance companies are requiring it, and buildings cannot no longer afford to pay deductibles of $250,000 or $500,000 for a claim. So managing it themselves in-house and more or less creating your own system that's going to protect from these events happening is imperative. And we're seeing premiums go 2x on renewal. This gives you no visibility to this type of thing happening. So we're basically renewing our insurance every year, and the costs go up. So making sure and we're putting our plan in place to put these smart sensors out is very important to manage these types of events from happening.
Something you alluded at, Jordan, that you didn't quite name it, but a term that we use a lot is self-insured. Yes, you can't truly self-insure your building, but with these high deductibles and high premiums and everything happening, is that it may be better for you just to dip into your reserve fund to pay for these damages instead of making an insurance claim. Is that a good practice? What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, it's definitely important because insurance rates are only going to continue to go up. So managing the stuff in-house and being proactive with deploying these types of sensors is going to be very important. And inevitably, this is going to become a part of value with these assets, is having systems like this installed are going to make these assets, when they do sell condo units or do sell the asset, having these types of systems deployed are going to be advantageous for a new buyer as well.
Yeah, it's true. And you look at the cost of deploying a smart sensor system and different systems that we'll talk about later, really looking at, a common area deployment, full building deployment, you're looking at a low cost piece that, return on investment would be very quick, especially if you caught, that massive leak on, the top floor or anything like that. Here's another teaser for a customer success story. A luxury condo avoided thousands of dollars of water damage. This is a unit by unit deployment with the flood puck sensors that are looking at the washing machine, a bathroom, and a few other ones sprinkled out through the unit as well too. And then we'll listen to Paul a little bit later tell a story about how the smart sensors have helped him out. Let's move on to number 4. The key piece of all this conversation is, yes, choose a smart sensor, but choose the right one. So choosing the best solution, we'll start it off with, what about $10 squeakers?
With any technology, there's lots of different varying approaches, and it comes back to the old adage: is you get what you pay for. And with these types of little monitors, they typically will allow off either buzz or set off some type of audible alarm, but they're not monitored. They are extremely unreliable. The good thing is they're extremely cost effective. The challenge is when an event occurs, you want to know about it. And, in our case, we wouldn't necessarily trust something like this even in a home, never mind, an asset that's worth hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. You would not want to be protecting your asset with something like this. At the end of the day, you need a system that's going to be commercially robust, that it's built for the application, and you want to make sure that when there is an event or there is an occurrence that you want to be made aware of, that the system is going to be there and work effectively.
Something that we like to talk about is redundancy. So how many people can get this alert? Is it just the people within earshot? Is it just the people that are, on site? Is there 20 people that can be looking at this? Is there 5 people that can be looking at this, to make sure that these things don't go unnoticed? A simple squeaker, yes, that's great. You can go and see if it, walk your building and find out if it did hit water, if it's not working anymore, if it's changed states. We can find that out, but not often are you going to get a call to your cell phone or a text to your cell phone to know exactly where the water's happening, exactly when it started, and the duration of those events as well too. So water bills and spreadsheets, something that we keep going back to with water bills. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about spreadsheets. So taking that information out and then doing your own, your own calculations, your own equations to figure out trends. What are the pros and cons on that, Jordan?
Yeah, this would be one of the most common ways that building management companies are monitoring their water use and managing it. It allows you to build benchmark. It allows you to understand, comparing site to site. You're able to run some analytics on maybe a per cost per suite or per cost per unit or per square foot basis, and give you some understanding of what your sites are using comparatively. But at the end of the day, it's really giving you poor understanding of what's actually happening at the sites. Should they be using that much water? It's still very much reactive. We're still basing this on every 30 to 120 day bill cycle. So it's very delayed. It's very behind. And unfortunately, when we're dealing with any type of data entry, manual data entry, all it takes is a slip of a button, slip of a decimal place, and the numbers are not correct. And maybe potentially a leak now doesn't get caught for another few months. So it's very high risk at that as well.
Counting is very important. We were reminded of that last week from our neighbors down south. Counting is very, very important. Jordan, you have a unique angle on this as you come from a background of property management for a while. How much time did you spend in Excel? Too much time? Not enough time? What do you think?
Yeah, we were always going through spreadsheets and data entry. It was constantly adding new data points or trying to compare sites and different things. So it's very time consuming. It's definitely not an efficient way of trying to manage a portfolio of sites.
Jordan was pretty excited when he left that role to join us here because he was able to throw his Excel for Dummies book out and focus on the dashboard, kind of taking care of that angle. And that's big. Not everybody's going to have the ability to, make those calculations in a spreadsheet. Having a tool to do that for you and to custom reports and all that stuff as well is, saves a lot of time and saves a lot of manpower as well. So choosing the best solution here, something that we talked about a couple slides ago, sorry, Jordan, is BMS and BAS. So going away from the smart sensor piece of the independent, potential cellular, potential Wi-Fi, a more of a hardwired approach with these two systems.
Yeah, one big advantage of the smart sensor piece, and we're going to talk a little more about this in a few minutes, but is the not having to require infrastructure upgrades and rewiring buildings, where when you implement a BAS system, yes, they're giving you great data from your sites, and we're finding a lot of buildings have these systems in place now over the years. They've been around for a long time, which is great, but they're typically focused on your electricity and your gas consumption. They're not always as focused on water, and definitely not looking at leak or flood. And so these systems are definitely useful, but they're very complex. They take a long time to deploy, and not everybody understands the data that's coming out of them. So it's not necessarily user-friendly or something that you'd want to necessarily deploy this information through your entire property management organization. So a big challenge with this will be understanding the data, being able to comprehend it, but also the data points that are coming out of it are not as granular when it's not purely focused on the water piece. So we do see some BAS systems connected to water meters. They'll give maybe an hourly resolution to consumption, if not just data readings, which is just a pulse output off the meter. So it's very broad, still doesn't give you any breakdown or real understanding of what's happening in real time or minute by minute. And that's where that real value of having these smart sensors can really play a role in a building.
You mentioned the duration for install. What would be your best guess? Take a 10-story building. How long would it take to install one of these?
Yeah, it's all going to come down to the wiring. Unfortunately, these systems have to have wiring placed throughout the entire property, so it can be quite cumbersome and take quite a bit of time. I mean, on average, the system could maybe take a month or two to actually get everything deployed fully and properly, make sure everything's calibrated. But then it can take up to a year until everything's like fully up and running and everything's calibrated effectively and giving you the data that you're really truly looking for. So it can definitely take quite a bit of time.
Obviously, for a new construction or a pre-construction building, something that's 1 or 2 years old, would it be easier to install one of these systems in, or is it the same for a building that's 50 years old?
Yeah, it would be pretty much the same. I mean, if the building has the wiring already run through it, then great. But if it doesn't, then it's the same process, whether the building is 50 years old or 5 years old. It's still lots of labor and lots of technical assistance.
So maintenance would be pretty hard on a system like this as well, too, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're always going to need your BAS system operator to assist with this. This is not something you're going to have your building maintenance staff or your superintendents assisting with.
So everything you're saying, I'm thinking about dollar signs, dollar signs, dollar signs, site visits, long installation process, long training period. If all of a sudden a year after you guys install, you get a new staff member in there, there's another training period for them as well too. So although great advantages, as we can see, the list of pros are a little shorter than the list of cons for sure.
Absolutely, it'll definitely add up.
So let's move over to Wi-Fi sensors. The key thing that we've kind of alluded to and keep talking about is what happens if the power goes out.
Yeah, unfortunately, Wi-Fi sensors are great for our homes in small spaces, but when we're dealing with large infrastructure like a stacked multi-res building, it's very difficult to have Wi-Fi reach every area of the building, especially in parking garages or mechanical rooms. And in a lot of cases, these older buildings, they don't have Wi-Fi signal or Wi-Fi supply for the entire property. So they're not reliable, and that goes for multiple facets. Is it's connectivity, but it's also when the power does go out, or let's say a modem needs to be replaced, everything will have to be recalibrated. All the sensors will have to be repaired, and can take a tremendous amount of time, and it's extremely unreliable. Even when there's storms and things happening, the buildings can flood and have different events happen, and that's when you need your system to be working properly. So having a system reliant on a Wi-Fi system is definitely not the best for a commercial real estate application.
So it sounds like if the power goes out, you could be spending a lot of time once it's restored, walking around the building, unplugging your routers, plugging them back in, unplugging your repeaters, plugging them back in, going to your smart sensors, make sure that they're communicating, something that wouldn't be just automatically restored or maintained with other solutions that have that ability to work without Wi-Fi.
Absolutely, having a battery backed up system and having something that's cell connected is imperative to make sure that you maintain your online connection through any type of weather or event taking place.
With that said, let's move on to the next slide. Cellular smart sensors. As we alluded to, that power situation, that backup network, that cell network piece. Something we like to say within these four walls, maybe not my basement when we're at the office, is if power goes out, cellular is still going to be there. If cellular goes out, then yes, we're in real trouble. But cellular is going to be there unless it's absolutely catastrophic.
Yeah, cellular smart sensors are the way of the future. Everything being IoT is very important without having to wire things. These allow buildings to self-install very quickly. You don't need technical acumen or paying a specific trade to come in to be able to deploy this type of technology. It'll be compatible with any type of building, so this is really scalable. It's a very customizable approach where you're able to treat every building as its own and provide the best products for it. It's extremely cost-effective this way, and allows you to put a whole building water management and leak detection platform in place.
Yeah, Wi-Fi, big thing that we've, conversations that we've had throughout the years in different sectors, not just with property management and multi-unit buildings, is Wi-Fi security. So us tapping into a potential secure network, what is the parameters on that? What could be the potential fallback? All that with personal security, everybody else on that network as well too. That is all erased with our cell protocol for smart sensors to kind of take that off the table. Something we didn't highlight, but it's a big thing that we get questions about as well. Backup battery too. It powers out, cell network's up, 24 hours backup at least would be great. Features that we've seen before. And then something that we keep hitting at, cost effective. The cost of outfitting your building less than that cost of that damage that you had a few months ago, typically, and then less than those insurance claims and deductibles that you'd have to make as well too. Again, just kind of talking about the deployment of these units as well too. Self-install, no tools, all in one day. You have the ability to essentially plug and play with this type of solution. Another thing as well too, current climate that we keep hinting at is that reducing the amount of people in the building, reducing the time that you're in the building, able to have a product that comes pre-registered, pre-onboarded, pre-labeled, ready to go. So it's showing up in a box with the umbrella, just like the stork. Everything's labeled, ready to go out. Create your network with the cellular devices, place the companion pieces out into each unit. You can even simply place them outside the door and with the label say dishwasher, and the tenant knows to place it by the dishwasher. Pull the battery tag, you can do that yourself, and that's communicating to the network. And then you have the visibility of seeing the health of those batteries, health of the sensors remotely on a dashboard to know that you don't have to go in to check it. The tenants don't have to be responsible to check it as well too. Having that remote access and touch, decreasing the touches is quite key.
Yeah, we like to thrive with the touchless install is very important with COVID these days. So you're able to do a deployment very, very quickly with a comprehensive system that can be in every unit or in major mechanical areas, but again, very customized. With portfolios, you also need this dashboard to be able to supply you with data from all of your properties so you can analyze and compare building to building or unit to unit. But being able to see this either on your phone or on a computer is very important. So as you work remotely, and we're always traveling around servicing buildings and doing different things, you need to be able to just understand what's happening at each property. It'll give you that peace of mind to understand that every night when you go to bed, that portfolio is running the way you want it to, and that there is no events currently ongoing.
It's something that the smart sensor business has been very cognizant of, at least we have as well, is integrating with historical systems, the incumbent systems as well. So that's, something that highlighted over here on this graphic is this API. So working with your existing BAS systems, working with your existing energy management systems to, give you kind of that one face to look at your total usage for gas, electric, and water as well too is very key. The ease of use is very important, and this is just another example of, yes, you can go to a separate dashboard to look at your water and your water damage and water damage prevention pieces, but you also have the ability to look in, your one tried and true program to get your minute by minute water usage and also get those alerts on, potential leak at the site, wasted water, or those abnormal water events where all of a sudden the water usage spikes. It could just be filling a pool, but it could be a bursted pipe. Getting that integration is quite key.
Absolutely. There's a lot of features that come with the smart sensors, like readings of temperature and readings of humidity. They can be really comprehensive and really create that full picture to what events are currently occurring at sites. So having the ability to put all these pieces together in one place is very important.
Let's move on to number 5, getting buy-in, making your stakeholders see you as a rock star. So you bringing the solution to the table, seeing that return on investment, seeing those avoided damages, avoided cost damages, and getting that stakeholder to say, yes, absolutely, thanks for bringing this attention. Let's do a full rollout. Let's move to the next building. Let's move to the next 10 buildings.
So the importance of these systems is to be easy. So it's a quick setup, it's understandable and insightful. It gives you shareable reports, so you're not relying on those manually data entered pieces, which will now free up more and more time for you to focus on your day-to-day job, not worried about copying water bills or electrical bills or HVAC bills into Excel files. It becomes very cost effective. So it's better than water damage and high bills happening. It really gives you that ROI because you're going to be able to constantly monitor your water use, react real time. And what we're really finding with the property management sector is by changing your habits operationally, by utilizing technology like this, you're seeing a very quick return on the technology because you're able to reactively change and make effects to the buildings in real time. So we're not now getting a water bill and saying, oh, there's been a mistake or there's a problem here, there's something running and we need to go and repair it, and having that water bill already be high. Now you're able to make that change within 24 or 48 hours, let's say. So you now have saved 28 days of extra water spend.
How often of your, how many times in a day or what percentage of your day do you think about water? For us, obviously, it's 95%. For a property manager or local site manager or a owner of rental units as well too, maybe they're thinking about water 1 to 2%. So we want a solution that will only take 2% of your day, something that's easy, something that's foolproof in a sense and takes care of itself. That way you're not all of a sudden spending 10%, 20% of your day looking at something that you just don't have the time to look at. As I talked about earlier, the success story we're about to look at is a water damage prevention success story, full deployment, flood pucks in every unit of a condo building downtown Toronto, very well-to-do building, very smart, proactive property manager there as well too. He wanted to increase his service to his tenants and also increase the likelihood that he's going to be there for the next 10, 15 years because he brought a solution to the table that is going to be irreplaceable and made himself irreplaceable as well. Let's go ahead and watch that video.
My name's Paul Moreland. I'm the property manager here at Thornwood 2, which is located at 25 Scrivener Square. The very first flood that we were able to avoid was within a couple of weeks. We had received a phone call within seconds that there was a leak in a washing machine.
Hello, this is Alert Labs. The Floody Flood Sensor has detected a flood in a laundry room of suite number 546.
Our security guard went upstairs to check it out, knocked on the door. The person who answered the door didn't think they had a water leak, so we actually went in and looked at the washing machine and there was water all over. We were able to avoid any damage to the suite below. The person below wouldn't even know about it. It's helped us save definitely a few $1,000s because we've had about 3 or 4 of these happen. So it was a piece of cake setting it up. So and it's been a piece of cake since whenever we installed it last fall. Of course, I would highly recommend it to anyone, whether it's a condo building or residentially.
So some of those quick hits that Paul hinted at was ease of deployment, something that we keep bringing up today. And another thing that we haven't really talked about is, we talk about those common areas or those behind lock and key areas of the elevator, of the boiler room, places that aren't often visited. You are now looking at the in-unit piece as well too. So all of a sudden we're bringing in the tenants, they have to report something. They have to be the proactive pieces. Not always the case, could be seen as a nuisance to be able to report this leaking toilet, this leaking, kitchen sink or whatever it may be. They may not report it until it is a true issue. So kind of putting together that solution and giving you the option to take control back of what's happening in unit is quite key.
Yeah, it's very important having these systems deployed, obviously, and in Paul's case, as he was referencing, the ability for these systems to alert them to these 2 or 3 events that happened very short after their initial deployment avoided them having to make insurance claims, and for them this would save thousands of dollars in deductibles and the events, and obviously all the other tenants and everybody else affected. So it's a compounded piece where once these sensors are deployed, they immediately work in your benefit and for the long term.
This is the second story. Again, what we hinted at earlier with the $100,000 in savings with the real-time water monitoring. Big thing with this, we'll talk about it after, but this is a $100,000 price tag in savings. Not necessarily always what happens. One building, 2 buildings can add up to that pretty quickly, but we'll discuss that after the video.
Using the Flowy device, the projects that we've implemented have had very short payback periods, usually 1 year or less. And we estimate that we've saved approximately $100,000 in annual water savings.
So this is
quick
obviously
and easy
a story for Minto. They had one building catch a major ongoing leak, and as you acquire new assets and even buildings that have been in a portfolio for a long time, you generally think how much water the property should be using, and you think this is normal. But without having these sensors deployed and really understanding the granular data, sometimes some of these things have been ongoing for years and happening that we're not really sure why there's so much water use. But identifying the run rates and what that's currently costing the organization, you can really create a strategic, actionable plan to cut down and cut out that excess water use. And in their case, they saved $100,000. And obviously, this is a huge test case for them and was very successful. But what we do find on a typical basis is 5 to 8% of excess water use at buildings takes place every single year. And this is a good rule of thumb to compare sites to. And sometimes we put sensors on, and within 24 hours, they can pay for themselves. And in other cases, it's paid back well within a year. And that's typically what we do see in the industry.
That's really important, just to look at it industry-wide and building by building. You're not always, we deploy tech and smart sensors are deployed throughout the country and buildings. Do they catch issues? Not always, but majority of the time they will at least bring insight to your building that you've never known. A perfect example of that is a customer discovered that the majority of their water usage happened in between 2 to 3 a.m. in the morning. That first step was to say, hey, what happens at 2 to 3 a.m. in the morning? And they were able to reduce their water just through that. It wasn't a leak, it wasn't a flood, but it was just identifying the systems and finding those mechanical requests for water as well too, to really start to know your building greater than every 30 days of the water bill, greater than every 60 or 120 days with those water bills. You will know what's happening at what hours, minute by minute, and where's your water going, and you can start questioning, why is it going there? Does it need to go there? And really evaluating your system that way. So that's a good kind of brief. Yeah. So in summary, what we talked about with our 5 problems, water bills, we keep hinting at it, but you are very, very, reactive with water bills. You are, just accepting what you have, and maybe next year you can deal with it. Maybe next month you can deal with it. But even when you get your bill, if it's 30 days, get it 5 days later, that problem could be going on for those 35 days. Figuring it out could be another 10 days. Fixing it could be another 5. So you're just adding up those days, because that next bill will come. And that includes, another 20 days of that next bill cycle that is going to be high. Getting in there, real-time water flow monitoring, knowing what's happening, exactly when it's happening is quite key. Going to save yourself time, going to save yourself money with that.
Yeah, to go through the water damage effect and the insurance costs are kind of all tied together. But having flood pucks and water overflow sensors and auto water shutoff valves will add that added layer of protection, so you're not making insurance claims, but it automates the buildings, and now it takes away the human interaction piece with determining when there is a flood and if someone is awake to even see that there is water damage occurring. With this, having cellular connected smart building sensors with battery backup is very, very important for the success of the deployments of this type of technology. It's going to give you that full portfolio management tool, so then you're able to really manage water use overall, as well as mitigate leak and flood damage at the same time.
And taking all that information and choosing the best solution. Cellular connected, smart building sensors with battery backup. Making sure that you have redundancy in the building, that you're not relying on one thing. Power goes out, all my sensors are out. Wi-Fi goes out, all my sensors are out. Those are the key things to keep looking at and keep paying attention to. And I do believe behind Jordan's beautiful face, it says buy-in, and all about, the solution there is making it easy, cost effective, and make sure that they work. That is that $10 squeakers. Do they work? Yes, it could be a success story for you, but could it be, functional in a full building rollout? Most likely not. Cost effective. Making sure that it's less than what that big insurance claim could be. Making sure it's less than what that big repair bill will be. Getting all those trades in that Jordan alluded to earlier. Getting the people with their big dryers in just to get those out. Displacing tenants. That's that cost effective piece. Reduce, not making sure that doesn't happen. So, coming in at a cost is going to be less than that, which could, pull out some of those other systems, those hardwire systems. That's going to cost time and a lot of money to maintain, install, and to move on in the future. And then reverse order, talking about easy. We couldn't said it enough today. It needs to be easy, especially today. That nuisance. You don't want to be a nuisance with a new rollout. This is going to be quick, simple, easy, making sure that, almost touch free and, plug and play as well too. So that's quite key. Anything to add, Jordan?
No, I don't think so. I want to make sure we thank everyone for joining us on the webinar today, and please ask us any questions whatsoever in the chat function below, and we'll look forward to talking to you all soon.
Our full team will be available for questions, throughout the week. So look forward to talk to you. And if it's not Jordan, if it's not me, I'm sure someone just as knowledgeable as will be able to give you the best answers for your problems. Have a great day.